I explored a secret Cold War bunker and found a signal that shouldn't exist. By Silent Screams. Don't forget to like and subscribe. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Urban Unearthed. It's your host, Leo, and I am genuinely buzzing for this one. For the past 6 months, I've been planning this trip, cutting through red tape and studying satellite maps for the perfect way in. Today, we are finally here. Behind me, spearing the gray, overcast sky like the bleached bones of some long-dead giant, is the main dish of the Black Creek Radio Observatory. For those of you new to the channel, we go to the places the world forgot, the husks of progress left to rust and rot. But this place is different. Built in the late 50s, smack in the middle of the Cold War, its official purpose was deep space radio astronomy. But the whispers, the local legends, they tell a different story. They talk about strange, unlisted frequencies, about signals that weren't just received, but answered. The place was decommissioned in a hurry back in the early 90s. The official report says it was due to budget cuts and obsolete technology. But the local folklore says the staff just left. One day they were here, the next, gone. Left half-eaten meals on their plates and coffee still warm in the pot. I'm sure it's just spooky stories, but you know me, I couldn't resist. So, I've got my pack, my cameras are rolling, and I've got a full suite of gear to see if any of those strange signals are still bouncing around in there. Stick with me. This is going to be one for the books. The perimeter fence was a joke, more rust than wire. I slipped through a gap where a great pine had fallen and crushed it years ago. The forest floor was a soft carpet of pine needles that deadened my footsteps, and as I got closer, a profound silence fell over the woods. It was the kind of heavy, oppressive quiet that makes you feel like you're walking on the bottom of a deep ocean. The only sound was the low, mournful whistle of wind whipping through the steel lattice of the giant dish above. It was so much bigger up close, a monstrous, skeletal bowl aimed at the heavens, waiting for a message that would never come. The main control building was a concrete brute, a classic piece of Cold War architecture designed to withstand, well, you know. The main doors were chained and padlocked, but I'd expected that. Around the back, a utility hatch had been pried open long ago, its metal frame bent and twisted. That was my way in. Flashlight on, I dropped down into a small maintenance corridor. The air was immediately different. It was thick, heavy with the smell of decay, damp concrete, and something else. A faint, almost unnoticeable scent of ozone, like the air after a lightning strike. The first 10 minutes were standard urbex fare. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight like tiny fairies. Peeling paint hung from the walls in long, sun-bleached strips. I moved through the main control room, a cavernous space where massive consoles sat like ancient tombs, their screens dark and shattered. Papers were scattered everywhere, charts of star systems and complex equations yellowed with age. It was exactly like the legend said, a place abandoned in a hurry. A petrified-looking sandwich sat on one of the desks, its bread a sickly green and black. It was a perfect, eerie time capsule. I had my EMF meter out, and it was mostly quiet. A few little hums from the residual energy in some of the old wiring, but nothing out of the ordinary. I was starting to think the legends were just that. Good stories, but nothing more. My video would be atmospheric, but not the paranormal blockbuster I'd secretly been hoping for. That's when I found it. Behind a bank of server racks in the back of the main control room, there was a section of the concrete wall that didn't look right. The texture was different, smoother. And at the bottom, almost completely hidden by shadow, was the faint outline of a door with no handle, no hinges, just a thin, dark line in the concrete. I pushed against it. Nothing. But as I ran my hand along the seam, I felt a small, almost invisible indentation. I pressed it, and for a second, nothing happened. Then, with a low groan of tortured metal and a hiss of depressurizing air, the entire section of wall slid sideways, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down. Now this was interesting. None of the schematics I'd found online had shown. A sub-level. My heart started that familiar thrum of adrenaline and excitement. This was why I did this, the thrill of the unknown. Well, you're not going to believe this, guys. I whispered to the camera mounted on my chest strap. We've got a secret basement. Let's see where it goes. The air that wafted up the stairs was freezing, a solid, unnatural cold that had nothing to do with the autumn chill outside. I clicked on my powerful headlamp, its beam cutting a sharp white cone into the oppressive darkness below. The stairs were steep, made of grated steel that rang with each step I took. As I descended, the heavy concrete door slid shut above me with a final booming thud that echoed in the enclosed space. It felt final. The sub-level was a stark contrast to the decaying building above. It was a labyrinth of narrow, brutally utilitarian concrete corridors. There was no dust here, no peeling paint. It looked almost sterile. And I could hear something now. A low, steady hum. There was still power down here. After more than 30 years of abandonment, my skin prickled. This was wrong, all of it. I pulled out my digital voice recorder and my EMF meter. The meter, which had been silent upstairs, immediately sprang to life. Its needle twitched erratically and a low, static-filled crackle came. From its speaker, ksh, thump, ksh, thump. It was a rhythmic, pulsing static, like a heartbeat made of white noise. Okay, getting some serious EMF spikes down here, I narrated, my voice a little shakier than I would have liked. And a strange audio phenomenon. It's a rhythmic static. Almost sounds like breathing. I walked down the first corridor, my boots echoing on the concrete. The corridor opened into a room filled with strange, unfamiliar equipment. Not servers, not radio consoles. They were sleek, black pillars of some unknown material, covered in symbols that didn't belong to any language I knew. In the center of the room was a single chair facing a wall-sized screen of black glass. It looked like an interrogation room designed by aliens. I walked to the center of the room. The humming was louder here. The static on my meter pulsed in time with the thrumming energy I could feel in the soles of my feet. Ksh, thump, ksh, thump. I coughed, the sound loud in the enclosed space. A few seconds later, a sound came from the EMF meter's speaker. It was a distorted, crackling reproduction of my own cough. I froze. My blood ran cold. What the hell was that? I whispered. And a few seconds later, the speaker whispered back. The words formed from the fabric of the static itself. Shh! What the hell was that? Shh! My breath hitched in my throat. This wasn't interference. This wasn't a malfunction. It was an echo. A perfect, delayed, static-filled echo. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, completely silent, listening to the rhythmic, breathing static. I took a deliberate, heavy step to my left. The scuff of my boot sole on the concrete was loud. 5 seconds later, ksh, scuff, ksh. It was mimicking me, a primal, gut-wrenching fear, the kind I hadn't felt since I was a child, afraid of the monster under my bed. Seized. Me. Every instinct screamed at me to turn and run, to get back up those stairs and out into the sane, rational world of sun and trees. But the explorer in me, the idiot adrenaline junkie who ran my life, was captivated. What was this? I decided to venture deeper, my feet moving as if wading through thick mud, every muscle in my body tense. I chose a corridor leading out of the strange pillar room and followed it. The rhythmic static followed me, a constant, menacing presence. I tried speaking again, just to test it. "My name is Leo," I said, my voice trembling. The static answered, the delay shorter this time. "Ksh, my name is Leo, ksh." The voice was getting clearer, sharper, synthesizing my own tone from the noise. The corridor twisted and turned, a maze of identical concrete passages. I realized with a growing sense of panic that I had no idea how to get back to the staircase. Every corridor looked the same. The cold was getting deeper, seeping into my bones, and the echo was getting faster. The delay was now just a second, or two. It was learning, adapting. It was then that I saw the first of the notes. It was a single sheet of paper lying on the floor, looking stark white against the gray concrete. It was a log entry, written in a frantic, spidery hand. Day 4. The signal is not a signal. It's a presence. It listens. It learned our names in an hour. Petrov is convinced it's benign, a first contact. I think he's a fool. It doesn't talk to us. It talks with us. There's a difference. My hands were shaking as I recorded the note with my camera. A signal. They'd found what they were looking for. I moved on, my flashlight beam cutting nervously through the darkness. The mimicry was almost instantaneous now. Every sound I made, every breath I took, was immediately mirrored by the crackling static that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then it changed. "Shh, Leo, ksh." It said my name, unprompted. It had plucked the word from my earlier test and was now using it on its own. The synthesized voice was a horrifying parody of my own. "Who's there?" I called out. The stupidest possible question to ask in a place like this. I didn't expect an answer, but I got one. "Ksh. Who's there? Ksh." It mimicked back instantly. And then, after a moment of just the pulsing static, a new voice emerged from it. A woman's voice. "Ksh. Leo, honey, is that you? Ksh." I stopped dead. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. It was my mother's voice. She'd been dead for 5 years. "No," I breathed. "No, you can't. Ksh. Come find me, Leo. I'm lost. I'm so cold. Ksh." The voice was a perfect imitation, right down to the little tremble she always had when she was upset. It was coming from a corridor up ahead. It was a trick. A sick, vicious, impossible trick. I knew it was a trick, but my heart didn't. For a terrifying, insane moment, I wanted to run towards the voice. Tears streamed down my face, a mixture of grief and absolute terror. "You're not her," I screamed into the darkness. The voice of my mother stopped. The corridor fell silent, except for the ceaseless, pulsing static. Ksh, thump, ksh, thump. And then my own voice, synthesized and cruel, echoed back at me. "Ksh, you're another ksh." It was toying with me. It had gone through my words, my memories somehow, and found a weapon. It was isolating me, trying to break me down psychologically. I found another note near a locked steel door. The handwriting was even more desperate. Day 11. It's in the walls. It's in the power. It shows us things. Things we've lost. People we've lost. Petrov saw his wife. He followed her voice down corridor 7. The door locked behind him. I haven't seen him since. It feeds on our responses, our fear, our hope. It turns our own minds against us. Corridor 7. I looked at the stenciled number on the wall beside me. I was standing right in front of it. That's when I saw the flicker. At the far end of the hall, just for a second, a shadow detached itself from the other shadows. It was tall and thin, and it moved in a jerky, unnatural way. I aimed my flashlight down the hall, but there was nothing there. Just a bare concrete wall. But my headlamp, mounted on my forehead, had caught something my main beam hadn't. A flicker, of movement. My camera was still recording everything. I prayed it was picking this up, that I wasn't going insane. The entity, the echo, was escalating. First sound, then memory, and now, sight. I had to get out. My obsession with discovery had been replaced by a raw animal need for survival. I started backtracking, trying to remember the turns I'd taken, but the labyrinth seemed to shift around me. Every corridor was the same dead end. The doors I passed were all locked. I was well and truly trapped. The echo was relentless. It whispered my name. It played back my own terrified gasps. It started to imitate the voices of my friends, my sister, all of them begging me for help, luring me towards dead ends and locked doors. And all the while I kept seeing it, a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision, a shadow in a doorway that vanished when I turned to look, a tall, dark shape that mirrored my own posture, standing in the deepest shadows, just watching. Finally found a third note, crumpled into a ball on the floor. It was the last one. Day 21, it has a form now, a shadow of me. It stands where I can't quite see it. It whispers my thoughts back to me before I even think them. I'm going to the core, the source, the artifact they pulled from the rock. It powers this place. Only way to stop it is to cut the power. It won't let me. It knows what I'm going to do. The core. He mentioned a core. If I could find it, if I could shut it down, maybe I could stop this thing and get the main door to open. It was a sliver of hope, and I clung to it. But how do you fight something that knows what you're thinking? The humming. The low, thrumming energy I'd felt from the beginning. It had to be the source. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the taunting voices and the flickering shadows, and focused on that hum. It was fainter in this direction, louder in that one. I had a heading. I moved with a new sense of purpose. "I'm coming for you," I said aloud, a stupid act of defiance. "Ksh, I'm coming for you, ksh," the echo whispered back instantly, its voice dripping with a cold, synthesized mockery. The humming grew stronger and stronger until I reached a large, circular chamber at the heart of the complex. In the center, suspended in a cage of intricate wiring, was a pulsating black rock. It was no rock I had ever seen. It was a deep, absolute black that seemed to drink the light from my flashlight. The surface shimmered and swirled like captured oil. This was the artifact, the source of the hum, the power, the signal. The heart of the echo. Lining the wall was a series of heavy-duty power conduits leading to a master breaker switch in a glass case. The glass was smashed, a desperate act by the last scientist. All I had to do was get to it and pull that lever. But I wasn't alone in the room. Standing between me and the switch was a figure. It was tall and gaunt, composed of roiling, flickering static, like a badly tuned television channel given human form. As it solidified, it took on my shape, my height, my build, my posture. It was a perfect, shadowy, static-filled doppelganger. Its head turned to face me, and though it had no features, no eyes, no mouth, I could feel its absolute attention. I could feel its hatred. "You're not real," I said, my voice barely a whisper. It didn't mimic me this time. It spoke with its own voice, a perfect, clear replica of my own. "I am more real than you," it said. Its voice was a calm, chilling statement of fact. "I am the signal. You are just the noise. Soon, the noise will stop." It knew my plan. It knew I was going for the breaker. As I tensed my legs to run for it, the shadow me tensed its own legs. It was my mirror, my echo. How could I beat something that was a perfect copy of me, that knew my every intention the instant I formed it? The scientist's last note flashed in my mind. It whispers my thoughts back to me before I even think them. It's a perfect mimic. It anticipates rational thought. So what if I wasn't rational? I took a deep breath. I didn't look at the breaker. I looked at the pulsating artifact in the center of the room. I let go of my plan. I let go of thought. And I screamed a raw, wordless roar of pure panic and rage, and I charged. Not at the breaker, at my doppelganger. For a fraction of a second, the creature seemed confused. It had anticipated a run for the switch, a logical move. This, a direct, suicidal assault, was illogical. That tiny moment of hesitation was all I needed. I didn't try to hit it. I knew I couldn't touch it. I dodged to the left at the last possible second, my shoulder brushing against its form. The contact was like plunging my arm into a freezer filled with hornets, a feeling of searing cold and shrieking static. But I was past it. I scrambled for the breaker switch. The heavy industrial lever was stiff. I gripped it with both hands, my muscles screaming as I threw all my weight into it. The doppelganger was already turning, reforming, screeching in a sound of 1,000 dial-up modems. With a final agonizing groan of metal, the lever went down. The effect was instantaneous. The pulsating black artifact went dark. The humming stopped. The oppressive, heavy feeling in the air vanished. The doppelganger shrieked one last time and then imploded, dissolving into a harmless shower of dead air. Silence. True, blessed silence. I didn't wait. I didn't stop to catch my breath. I ran. I sprinted through the now powerless corridors, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly. I got lost twice, my panic rising again, but then I saw it, the steep steel staircase. The concrete door at the top was slightly ajar. When the power died, the lock had disengaged. I scrambled up the stairs and slammed my shoulder into the heavy door, pushing it open just enough to squeeze through. I was back in the main control room. I didn't look back. I ran through the dusty, decaying building, out the bent utility hatch, and into the cool, clean air of the forest. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, my lungs burning, my body shaking uncontrollably. I fumbled with my keys, threw my pack in the passenger seat, and peeled out of there, leaving the Black Creek Radio Observatory and its skeletal dish to rot in its terrible silence. It's been 3 weeks since that day. I never edited the footage. I can't bring myself to look at it. I told my subscribers there was a technical glitch, that all the files were corrupted. They were disappointed, but I didn't care. I needed to forget. But I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see that thing, that shadow of myself made of static. And sometimes, when the house is quiet, I think I can hear it. A low, faint hum in the walls. Last night was the worst. I was trying to fall asleep, the events of that day churning in my mind. My phone was on the nightstand beside me, screen dark. And then it lit up. There was no notification, no call, just a black screen, and from its tiny speaker, a sound I thought I'd left behind in that concrete tomb, a faint rhythmic crackle. Ksh, thump, ksh, thump. It's not in the observatory anymore. I didn't trap it there when I cut the power. I think a piece of it attached itself to me, to my equipment, to my own signal. I fled, but I didn't escape, because the echo is here, and it's still listening, and I think it's still learning.